Previously, you were at the mercy of what the game would give you on the fly to see what item that you had to work with whenever you set up a cannon shot, and some items were fairly useless as well. So I have the star here, for example, but if I hit you, now it changed up completely. Whereas if I see the cannonball set and I see that there's an item I want to fire from it, I have to immediately press the unique button in order to get it out. This basically meant that there was no pre-planning before with Vikala. You were on the fly decision-making for everything pretty much. And if you wanted to go for particular setups or anything like that with her that you labbed out using a specific item, you couldn't do it because you had to wait and see what you got there. Meaning that you had to gamble a lot of these Okazemi setups that you could, in theory, create with the character on RNG giving it to you in the first place. And I think this alone made her pretty much unviable to play. Now, on the HUD below the Skybound gauge for Vikala, you can see the next item that will come out when she uses her passive Dream Come True. Not only that, you'll also see that it will change periodically from time to time. So far, I'm rolling nothing but eggs. But there we go, we finally got the heart. This is massive because now you can basically look up and have an indicator for what your next plan of attack can be. Or, if you need to operate a quick item switch, you can go ahead and press the unique button and try and shuffle it around. And then once you see what you have, you can go ahead and commit to Okazemi setups. This is a pretty big change that I think alone would have made Vikala a lot more fun to play, just because now you could anticipate what your options were to try and pressure the opponent or what your combo routing would look like overall. However, there was a lot more changes that had to do to Vikala as well in order to increase her power level. So let's start diving into those. To start off, there was some flat damage increases to two of her items, Cannonball and Bomb. Previously, Cannonball did 800. And Bomb did 1,000. The new damage, Cannonball now does 1,000 instead of 800, an increase of 200. Bomb gets a little more meat to it, doing 1,400 damage instead of 1,000, so an increase of 400 damage. And just like throwing the item does more damage in the current patch, so too does shooting them out of the cannonball. Previously, Cannonball out of the cannon did 1,000 damage. As for Bomb, it did 1,200 damage before. The damage increase is pretty much unified with the damage increase that we saw when she throws the item itself. So for the cannon, it now does 200 more damage, while the Bomb will do 400 more damage. These are nice little damage increases for Vikala, meaning that when she gets these items, she's going to be able to kill the opponent in less interactions. Spike Ball has also been improved. It now does more hits. Previously, this would do 3 hits. So throwing the item, it would do 600 damage and be plus 12. Against the defending opponent, Vikala would be plus 8. Meanwhile, out of the cannon, she'd be plus 12 still. And then plus quite a bit on hit, depending on when the cannonball actually connected with the opponent. The damage was 750. While Spike Ball now does 2 additional hits, totaling 5, the damage has been adjusted so that there is no damage increase. As you can see, though, there's a lot more plus frames to work with, both on hit and on block. 4 extra frames in total. And of course, this will affect interactions when it's fired out of the cannon as well. This should improve it as a lockdown tool, as well as give Vikala access to new links in her combo routes that incorporate the Spike Ball, thus giving her increased damage from better combo routing. Heart and Cheese were pretty much Vikala's worst item in the previous patch, because this basically interfered with her game plan of trying to combo the opponent, because these didn't actually cause any block stun or hit stun. If you pulled these items when you were trying to pressure the opponent or go for some combo routing, and again, you didn't have an indicator to know what items you would get, you basically had to stop everything you were doing and try to cycle through the items or try to position it in a way where you could actually use it in order to regenerate your own resources as opposed to giving it directly to the opponent. Now, when you fire Cheese or Heart out of the cannon, it does inflict hit stop or block stun to the opponent. So this does serve as a little bit of a gimmicky way to play around with these items at least, and if you're forced to use them in a combo, I suppose it is an option, but we do have to explore some of the comparisons to other items that Vikala has in her kit. Let's look at the previous patch for the situation if you pulled cheese or heart when you used EX attraction in the corner in the middle of a combo. You still got Okizeme off of this one, but the opponent was given resources pretty much for free, and it really wasn't enough Oki to do anything except go ahead and go for a simple strike throw mix-up. With the new hit stop on it, you don't really get much more. In fact, you can't even get a combo. Which is, I think, is appropriate to keep these items as more of a helpful benefit for the opponent rather than anything else. However, with the extra 9 frames, I think you can get a meaty item toss here. So if you just so happen to pull a good item, you might be able to apply some Okizeme there. However, it's hard for me to test, as I basically have to have Vikala get cheese on the first one to throw a cannon out, and then get something like Spike Ball to then try to throw it at the opponent when they're set to mash. Let's go ahead and do that, though. Yep, you can get a meaty item toss there, which, depending on what you pull, could be pretty nice in this situation. However, if you decide you don't like the item and choose to not throw it, the opponent's wake-up mash will punish you in this situation, so it's probably best to just go for some sort of different Okizeme setups. But that is an option for you if you do want to throw an item at them and you find it favorable, to go ahead and try it on them at least. These items are also pretty bad against the opponent on block as well. -4 at point-blank range for the cheese. And pretty similar frame data for the heart as well. Keeping these items pretty much in the niche of this is something that strictly benefits the opponent, or Vikala if she can get her hands on it in a scramble. So now these items are pretty much in a space where Vikala never wants to fire them out of the cannon, but if she is forced to do so, at the very least, the opponent just knows that they still have to at least respect the offense. They won't take any damage from it, and it will result in some hilarious shenanigans, but they're also not going to be able to freely swing at Vikala either. Honestly, the biggest buff to these items is that you can see when they're next up for Vikala's kit. So then, instead of trying to set up cannons when you pull a heart or a cheese and you're in a neutral space, you can instead try to throw it on the ground and then scurry to pick it up to regenerate your own resources. Or use other cannons to zone or things like that. This is a huge buff for Vikala, as instead of being randomly gutted in terms of your combo routing or your pressure, you're able to play around these items and potentially use them in situations that are actually going to benefit you as opposed to the opponent. I keep going back to the point of where Vikala is actually able to plan out her setups because she's able to see what item that she has next. And I think this does a lot to just to improve the overall fun aspect that this character can potentially have. While I don't think that she's going to be completely competitively viable, because if you get bad RNG, well, then that's just bad RNG. When you get good RNG, at least you can have a lot of fun with the character. Check out this setup from Zawa Push. If you see you have Star, you can actually go for a fuzzy setup. Likewise, if you're doing Okizeme and combo routing like this, and you're also able to pull out a bomb, you're able to again set up a fuzzy setup. So I feel like there's a lot of potential to explore with the character, but again, she has to play nice with you in terms of RNG. Luckily, her bad items don't really spawn too often, as when I was trying to pull out Heart and Cheese for some other footage that y'all didn't see, it took me quite a while to get there. So I think, again, that she's going to be a lot more fun to play in this patch. Much like Grimnir's Seals, previously, Vikala's Dream Attraction Cannons would spawn in front of the HUD. This meant that at any given moment, it could obscure any of the cooldowns on screen. This could be a bit obnoxious for visibility's sake. Now, the Dream Attraction Cannons are behind the HUD. Meaning they no longer obscure cooldowns or any other important resources that you need to check. Much like Vane's buff to his Skybound art, Vikala also travels a little farther when she uses her Skybound art. They had a really stubby range before. It's still pretty stubby. But it is a little more reasonable, I would think. One thing that I did note with a bit of frustration is that it seems like even at max far heavy range, this super still whiffs. However, there's more ranges where you're able to link into this from a far heavy. That's a pretty practical example that I could find. More experienced Vikala players who have combo routings where this Skybound art would whiff before might be able to demonstrate when it actually reaches. So again, any insight in the comments below would be appreciated. I really don't expect Vikala to jump up tiers in terms of competitive viability, but I do expect her to jump up in terms of the amount of fun that you can have with this character. Being able to see your items, as well as some of your items being a little bit more effective, highlighting some of her stronger RNG pulls, is something that's going to make the character a lot more enjoyable to play, and also mean that she's might actually be able to win a couple more games here and there, just because of that ability for a good Vikala player to recognize what items are coming up and to plan around those accordingly. I'm excited to see if anything comes from the rat, but I don't think we're going to see anything soon, because whenever it comes to a character like this, where you have to adjust on the fly to what the game gives you in terms of resources, as well as just the amount of tech that has to still be explored with her, I think it's going to be a couple of months before we see any sort of Vikala players make some kind of splash in the competitive scene, if any.